Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muliwanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted and so honored that you are joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is JJ Shegog. She's here to celebrate dealing with silly little squabbles. Before we invite JJ into the studio, we want to invite you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on Twitter. Do you use Pinterest? Check out our Reading With Your Kids board on Pinterest. And also, please do visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. We're doing some updates. We have a brand new player. You can listen to every episode of the Reading With Your Kids podcast from our homepage. You can also sign up for our free newsletter. Authors, be sure to click the Authors Click Here button to find out how you can be a guest on the program, how you can submit your book to our Certified Great Read panel, and to find out how you can take part in our monthly promotion program. Oh, and you can also use the contact button on the top of the page to let us know what you think about the show, who we should have on next, what we're doing right, what we could be doing better, or if you just want to say hi. Join us right now from the great state of Illinois. Our guest today is here to celebrate her Dealing With series, but also to let us know that we can be a part of bringing the new book in that series to life. The new book is called Dealing with Silly Squabbles. Please welcome to the show the author, JJ Shegog. Hey, JJ, how are you?
I am fine. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
I'm excited to have you on. You know, JJ is launching a Kickstarter campaign. It is starting tomorrow, February 1st, 2022, if you're listening to the show on the 31st when we're publishing it. I love Kickstarter programs because it's kind of like a way to make us feel like we're on Shark Tank. And we're one of the sharks, and these creative folks are coming to us saying, hey, I have this great idea. We'd like you to partner with us. And so give me your pitch. Tell me about Dealing with Silly Little Squabbles and why I should want to support you.
Well, Silly Little Squabbles is the picture book I needed to read growing up. You know, I had all these emotions. I wrote the book I needed. I had all these emotions, and it never occurred to me that I can control them until I actually became a teacher myself. And I realized, you know, you got to keep your cool with kids because they're learning, the little beings. So during story time, I had their attention the most during that time. Like they were learning, they were grasping. And, you know, some of my kids weren't hitting the marks, but it wasn't because they couldn't do it. It's because they had to learn how to self-regulate and control their emotions and handle conflicts in a way to keep them in class and keep them focused. So that was one of the things that I desperately wanted to see as a teacher in Chicago. And so I believe this is a life-saving skill. Mm-hmm. So I wrote the book for my own son, and I felt selfish. Like, why would I keep this to myself? So I'm like, I'm not the only parent that, you know, this is a universal themes in children. So, you know, I'm like, you know, I have the skills. Let me see if I can, you know, publish it and get it out. And here we are.
Yeah. You know, you're so right. And you hit the nail on the head. I didn't know I was able to control these emotions when I was younger. There are adults today that don't know that. And I think and that's a real important lesson, I think, for all of us to remember that we do have the power to control. We might not have the power to control the way we feel about certain situations, but we certainly have the power to control how we react to them.
Yes. And how we express them. Mm-hmm. There are different ways we can express it. We can learn to take, you know, I call it the turtle technique, you know, tuck it in, you know, think about it. When you calm, tuck your head out, and then you can have that conversation, that dialogue with less of a chance of you regret saying something.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely. And this is something I'm like, if I'm an adult and needed help with this, I'm like, if I was 3 years old or 4 years old learning these skills, by the time I'm an adult, say 30, I would be an expert at understanding my emotions and your emotions and my role in them. So that's where it was like, okay, the perfect way that I seen as a teacher was kids learn is through story time. So picture books.
Yeah. So who are the characters that we're going to meet in dealing with Silly Squabbles?
Oh, you're going to meet the main character in this one is Mariah, which is the little sister. And she has conflict with her older sister, Rita. I actually named these characters after my mother and my niece because, I love them so much. I'm like, I would just name my characters after them. I would think about how would they interact if they were learning these skills as little kids. And I just created the stories around them.
That's really neat. Keeping it in the family. How do your mother and your niece feel about that?
Well, my mother loves it. I have pictures with her and Rita. And my niece, she's actually like 2 years old. So I'm hoping that as she get older, she will see herself in this book and learn those things as well.
Yeah. I'm just imagining that she's 4 or 5 years old and you're telling the story and then all of a sudden the light switch goes on and she's like, hey, Auntie, this is about me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, that's me. And I'm like, yes, that's you. So I'm very confident that will be something I can foster with her, as an auntie. Like, hey, I love you. I love all children. So everyone can see themselves in the characters of Rita and Mariah.
Yeah. So you were mentioning that one of the ways that we can react is like that turtle kind of pulling ourselves in and thinking about it for a minute before we express ourselves and thinking about how we're going to express ourselves. Are there other strategies that are presented in the book?
Oh, yes. There are. I have this whole bonus section. It's called What to Do with Conflict Arise. And it has, after the story ends, it have these strategies that kids can put into practice. And every book has an affirmation page that deals with the lesson. And actually, for this particular Kickstarter, I created a social emotional workbook as well, where I'm going to have sign languages. It's already in place. Sign languages to teach emotions, different activities to help kids with conflict, to put those skills into practice. And a lot of times, when they're 2, we don't know how to teach them. The first step is always like recognizing the emotion, learning how to say I feel statements. So a lot of those things will be in that social emotional workbook through the Kickstarter.
Yeah. We've talked a lot here on the podcast about just how important it is for us to help to teach our kids and help our kids get names for the feelings that they're having. I know for my son especially, it really helped us when we finally sat down and we understood that he was kind of identifying all the unpleasant feelings he was having were being expressed through anger. If he was sad, he became angry. If he was disappointed, he became angry. If he was angry, he was angry. And once we were able to sit down and help him, okay, so you're acting angry right now, but what is it that set you off? What is it? Well, I didn't get this. Well, that's disappointment. That's different than anger. How could you express that? And it made a huge difference in his life.
That is very powerful because from my experience, most of the time, anger is a secondary emotion. Mm-hmm. That's masking either one of the big threes: fear, shame, or guilt. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, that's what we're really feeling, but we're not, able to recognize that or either be able to face that that's what it is and really have that raw dialogue. Mm-hmm. So when you're able to ask them what made you angry, you're helping him or her peel those layers back and really get to the root cause of that. So that is very powerful.
Yeah. Well, we had to be very powerful. He's a wonderful young man right now, almost 30 years old. We're very, very proud of him. But like all families, there are some rough spots and some trying times. And I'm really happy that you're dealing with series are giving parents tools to kind of help get over those rough patches.
Yes, I honestly believe that if we empower the parents with the tools they need to help their children, they will.
Yeah.
A lot of times we just don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
If someone say control your emotions, well, how do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you want to know how. So this particular series, I wanted to make it as easy as possible for the kids to understand it and for the parents to teach it and practice it.
Right. Yeah, because, when you think about it, even, parents who are able to regulate and be in control of their emotions, they don't necessarily know how they came to that point. They learned it some way along the way, but there wasn't a class for it. There wasn't a manual. They learned little bits of wisdom from different people in their lives. And so they're able to do it themselves, but to then teach our kids, that's a different story. That's, and you can't teach a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old with the words that you'd be using as a 30 or 40-year-old.
Absolutely. Kid appropriate language. That is the key. Because let's be honest, most of the time I need things broken down to me as a 5th grade level, and I have a master's degree. It's just those big life concepts that take time. You need practice, and I always tell people to give yourself grace, because Rome was not built overnight. This will be a continuous thing, and if you teach them early on, and even you may be learning with them as you're teaching them, you get better with time and practice, and before you know it, you're in control of your emotions. No one can come up to you and say something and it alters your mood without you saying it's okay.
Yeah. You were talking earlier, I think maybe even before we started the recording, how important it is these days to teach kids conflict resolution. I remember when I was growing up, I grew up in the city, and there was a lot of fighting and a lot of violence, but it was, a couple of guys banged heads a little bit, and then you got up and you were playing with each other 30 minutes later. And if word got back to your parents, and parents would call you, hey, knuckleheads, get inside, have a sandwich. Things are different these days. Little playground skirmishes that we had, almost 100 years ago in my case, there are kids bringing dangerous weapons to school. And we're not just talking about city schools, in all over the country. And, and then when parents get word of it, it's not, you guys, you're playing again together, get over it, whatever. Parents get up in arms, and then they come in and there's a battle with the teachers, and you're not treating my kids right. And a whole lot of that stuff could be avoided if, your 4, 5, 6-year-old are able to sit down and go, let's talk this out.
Yes, because most of problems and issues arise not because of what you say, but it's how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're more conscious of how we're saying it, and if we're more conscious that somebody else experiences, they could have a bad day at home, and so they're already intense and feeling big emotions, and you say the wrong thing, it can go in a tragic way, in a tragic situation. So if we're teaching our kids early on to just be mindful of that and understand that and be able to react in a way, we can change a whole generation of how we interact with each other.
Yeah.
Because
yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. So one of the things we want to talk about is how people can interact with your Kickstarter campaign. If you're not familiar with Kickstarter campaigns, a creative, somebody who's creating a book or a song or a product, can go online and say, hey, pre-order this product and help fund it. And it's not just pre-ordering, buy it in advance. There are other ways that people can get involved and support you. So can you talk a little bit about those ways people can help and some of the rewards they'll get?
Yes. So I've been very diligent about what teachers need and parents need and created different tiers. So with this Kickstarter, I'm actually offering the audio version, a bundle with the audio, the hardcover, the ebook, I created a coloring book and a social emotional workbook. There will be digital downloads, so parents and teachers can print them off as they need it throughout the school year or throughout, any school year. As well as, I'm really, really adamant about inclusive and having the books accessible to as many people as possible, which is why I built in the audio version. But as stretch goals, I have the French version, the American Sign Language video that I would like to have created, the Spanish version, emotional intelligence game cards. Those are all will be stretch I call them milestones, meaning if we have more support than anticipated, I'm able to offer more things to help our parents and to help with these bundles of joys that we have as children. So I have so many are the social emotional workbooks. I had so many teachers come to me and say, this is what we need. This is what we would love to see. So I took the time and I have been creating it.
Awesome. This is exciting. I love that. And I've said this before, I really love the Kickstarter, the ability for people to come together. We don't need to have a giant corporation, put its stamp of approval on something. A creative like yourself can go out and find support, find like-minded people, because there are thousands. There might not be, the millions of people that a big traditional publisher would think would be excited about this, but there are thousands of people who need this product, and it should come to life. It should be available for folks, and it's wonderful that we have a way to do that. But the thing about Kickstarter is you need to act. You're launching your Kickstarter tomorrow. How many days is your campaign running?
24 days only, to be exact.
Okay.
So after that 24 days, I am actually closing it down. I may have a wait list for the book after that, but I'm really going to focus on delivering personalized messages to every single book in person and that back to campaign and bring in some extra. So it's only available for 24 days and it won't be available on Amazon anytime soon. So you have to get it through the Kickstarter.
Yeah. And let's just, you mentioned this is the second book and you're dealing with series. Tell us a little bit about the first book, please.
Oh, the first book was just a smash hit out the door. The first book, actually my first book signing in Bloomington, the newly elected mayor read the book at my first book signing. We were able to get the book in the Saville Museum of African American History in Chicago. It's been sold in Target. It hit #1 on Amazon the first week it released. So that book has just, taken on a life of its own. So I'm very pleased and excited to continue on with the series.
That's great. And the name of that book is I'm Really Mad?
Now I'm really mad.
Now I'm really mad. That's wonderful.
Don't ask me about the title. That's just something I used to say.
Well, you have such a beautiful, big smile, and you have such a great, wonderful personality. I can't imagine that you'd be saying, now I'm really mad.
Oh, ask my husband. I've came a long way, and I credit a lot of that to my faith in the birth of my son. It really put things in perspective. You can't get something out of your children if it's not out of you. So.
Isn't it amazing how when our children are born, it's not only that this new human being has come into the world, but that new human being coming into the world has changed us and created other new beings.
Absolutely. I feel like that's the beauty and mystery of life.
Yeah.
Because how can someone you never knew you first meet change your entire existence?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what my son did for me, and I will always be grateful.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That and teaching, because those children, I love them to death.
Yeah. Well, I know people are going to want to know where they can go to take part in the Kickstarter. Is there a link on your website people can click to get over to the project page?
Yes, on my website, www.jairscollections.com. And once you go there, it's the tab at the top that says Kickstarter, and it is a direct link to the Kickstarter campaign from there.
Well, we're going to keep our fingers crossed. The last Kickstarter project that we talked about here in the podcast was Quick Affirmations for Super Busy Men, Quick Affirmations for Super Busy Women by Yobi Q and Kim Ann, was fully funded in 5 days. So
wow.
We are hoping the same is true for dealing with Silly Little Squabbles, which was written by our guest, JJ Shegog. Hey, JJ, I wish you luck. I hope that this is a huge success and that people around the world, pretty soon, they're going to be holding that hardcover copy of Dealing with Silly Little Squabbles in their hands.
Thank you so much. I'm shooting for the stars. The sky is not the limit.
There you go. We've had a great time speaking with JJ Shegog. Please check out her Dealing with Silly Little Squabbles Kickstarter campaign. Hey, JJ, thanks for being with us.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're kicking off Black History Month with an interview with Michael Cotman. He is the author of Segregated Skies, David Harris's trailblazing journey to rise above racial barriers. It's an incredibly powerful and fun interview, really hopeful interview too. So please be sure to join us, Michael Cotman, next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Hey, if you are the author of a fantastic book, you do want to go to readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. That way you can find out how you can be a guest on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. You see, we've had incredible guests on the show. I mean, legendary authors like Mark Brown, the author of Arthur, decided to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Arthur here on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We would love to help you celebrate the launch of your debut book or the launch of your 400th book. It doesn't matter. We love children's authors. And you can find out how you can be a guest by going to readingwithyourkids.com, clicking on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. You'll discover that being a guest is fun, it's easy, it doesn't cost you a thing, and it gives you the chance to sit down in a long-form interview to tell families about your book, about your inspiration, about your history. It's a really, really fun way to let people know all about you and your book. We also have our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. If our panel believes that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a Certified Great Read. And with that status comes a number of really powerful tools that can let families know that your book is worthy of their consideration. And, of course, our monthly promotion program can celebrate your book with commercials on the podcast, messages to our 70,000-plus social media followers, and get your book displayed on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards. Check it all out. Readingwithyourkids.com. Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Please be sure to join me in thanking our guest, JJ Shegog. Be sure to check out her Dealing With series. Also want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Skylar Strauss. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.